The last time I was in South Africa was in Durban in 2019, and the job there was to build trust in the thriving BPO ecosystem. And so instead of this being an approach where I thought, what could I possibly share about me that would be of value, the entire focus of that conference was, how do I emphasize what's great about this country? And I found myself in a bit of a bind there because I didn't know much about South Africa. And so I went with whatever I could find, which was basically the human interactions I'd had leading up to my being on stage. And so instead of doing today in the form where I would tell you about what I am and what I do, I'd like to make this entirely about you. And hopefully show you that many of the answers that we're seeking are actually within. Guess what? We're here, presumably, because we think there's a problem, right? Some kind of problem, in business or otherwise. And we're also here because we sort of think there is a solution and someone will offer us that solution. And maybe we can move from that mindset to a slightly different way of looking at things. And specifically, a slightly different way of looking at trust. I'd say, in fact, that trust is neither a problem, nor is it a solution. Trust is really nothing else but a theory of experience. Trust is just a theory of experience. If I have an optimistic theory of experience, that means I trust. It means I think that things are going to be good. If I have a pessimistic theory of experience, I think that things will be bad. It's as simple as that. However, I don't know if you know the story. It's the story of the scorpion and the frog. So basically the story is, for some reason, don't ask me why, the scorpion wanted to cross a river. And because he couldn't do it himself, he asked the frog. And the frog said, well, here's the thing. You're a scorpion, so I don't think that's going to be a good idea. And so this scorpion was quite upset. But basically, he was a smooth talker. So he found a way of convincing the frog that she should take him across the river. And what he said was this: see, if I were to do any harm to you, and we were on that river, only you are the one that can swim. So if I were to harm you, things would go bad for both of us. And the scorpion said, well, does that sound convincing? And the frog ultimately agreed and says, fine. Reluctantly, I'll take you across the river. But what happened midway is that, and you probably know the story if you know the story, the scorpion couldn't really help himself, and so the frog felt a sting in the back. And then she complained to the scorpion and said, you fool, now we're both going to die. And the scorpion says, yes, but it's in my nature. Why am I telling this story? Well, if you are facing a lion, and the lion wants to eat you, you don't judge the lion for their nature, do you? It's unfortunate, I agree, but you don't judge them for it. The lion doesn't have a choice. They are sort of, just the creature, and they're doing whatever they're doing. But, of course, the big difference here between a scorpion and a lion and you and I is that we do have a choice of whether to act on the basis of our instinctive nature or otherwise. So we won't judge each other for the instinctive nature that is part of us being who we are, but we should definitely aspire to go beyond that. And I'll say it right away. On the instinctive level, it is much better to distrust someone good than to trust someone bad. Is it not so? This is the core problem. When you are faced with a choice, should I or should I not trust someone? And you instinctively solve this problem. It is always safer and better to distrust even a potentially good person than to trust the wrong person. And that explains exactly why the world is in the state that it is right now. And the reason for it is identification almost exclusively with the instinctive body nature of our being. There's a saying, and I forgot this was a great philosopher, I don't know, maybe he's well known. He said, almost every project in life is a project that is entertained because of actual suppressed fear of death. Almost everything we do is actually just an ambition to stay alive. But I think that as humanity, we're greater than that. So, in reality, today is not about the body, it is about the mind. But there is another problem that comes up. The mind is where all complexity rests. And now we have basically three choices to make. Either we exist on the body level, where our nature is quite instinctive, right? When we're afraid, we run away or we fight, just like a lion would, just like a scorpion would. So at this level, the good news is that life is very simple. You just make instinctive decisions. But the bad news is the world becomes ultimately a world of disarray. The second decision we can make is we can choose to operate on the level of the mind. Here's the problem. All complexity is at the level of the mind. There is no complexity in nature. It's all at the level of the mind. So operating at the level of the mind is not very satisfying. And thus, if we want simple, it seems so sensible to just go down to the instinctive level. However, there is a third faculty which we all have, and that is the faculty of intuition. Heart wisdom, if you will. Now, at that level, life is also simple. And note the gradation. At the bottom level, the instinctive level, life is simple, but things are not going to go well. At the mind level, we are facing stifling complexity, and so the mind is like a seesaw, permanently trying to balance things and potentially getting distracted along the way. However, at the intuition level, life is both simple and we actually embrace our inherent humanity. So at that level, a lot of great things can happen. In fact, that is where we unite as humanity and where we see each other as ultimately the same type of being. So really, I'm not asking you to trust everyone on the instinctive level. Don't do that. Stay alive. I'm also not asking you to reduce people to the mind that is in them. I'm asking you to see people in all these three ways. There is a body, there is a mind, and then there is a sort of heart full of wisdom. And that is really the level of intuition. And I'm using intuition here carefully because I know this word can be confused with gut feel. It's got nothing to do with gut feel. Gut feel is instinct. But just imagine if you were in a situation where you were afraid to provide for your family or where you were just afraid. In that situation, you would fight or you would flee. And this is true for every other human being around you as well. So at the level of the instinctive body level, we are not going to fare well with an approach of cautiousness. There, we must actually make sure that we are safe. So at that level, we should play it safe. And that's perfectly all right. However, at the level of the mind, it gets a little bit more complicated. Currently, what most companies do is they design for foolproofness. Basically guide our hands so that everything can go well. And in a world of complexity, that is a pipe dream. It does not work. So instead of designing for foolproof at the level of the mind, design for fail-safe. So that really we avoid the seesaw of the mind going down to the instinctive level, when in fact what it really should be doing is appreciating another human being. And so at the level of intuition, the beauty is that we quite naturally find ourselves as trusting and loving and open-hearted. And if we can allow the mind to be clear enough in its being, that we can access that level and connect at that level more often, I dare say that a lot of our problems will merely disappear. But guess what? It's not me doing that with or for you. It's you. You have that intuition. You have that heart mind. It is within you. And so the solution is to understand that we exist at least these three levels and to appreciate that when we try to meet each other at the intuitive heart wisdom level, the problems of the mind, the complexity of the mind very quickly disappears. And the instinctive problems are simply the problems of a species that is like every other species trying to stay alive, but doing this in a much more spirited way. That's the power of humanity. And I hope if you simply take away these 3 layers, it can completely transform the way you approach humans every day. Thank you very much.
Thank you.